Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Hey, Dmitry, welcome to the show.
Sam, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, man, my pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. I love this topic because it's one I think that people are familiar with. And yet, when it comes to self-directed investments, the solo 401k is one that's probably oftentimes overlooked. So I would love to hear from you, kind of how you got involved in the financial services industry. And then when you discovered solo 401ks or self-directing things and kind of, what did that journey look like for you as you discovered this niche of investing?
Yeah, well, let me kind of go back and just take maybe a minute or two, just kind of going over my background. As you can hear from my accent and your listeners, I am not native here. I'm an immigrant. I moved into this beautiful country back in 1996 from Russia, former Soviet Union. Actually, my family, I came with my parents. We moved as refugees. Basically, my parents were looking religious freedom. My parents and my grandparents actually been persecuted. So we got here and I didn't speak any English, didn't have any money. My background is in electromechanical engineering. That's what I went to school for back in Russia, in college. Got my degree actually here. I translated my degree, which was equivalent to BS in electromechanical engineering. And then I got laid off shortly after in a few years. And that forced me to look for something else. And I started in financial services, and then about the same time discovered real estate investing. So a few years later, actually, I went full-time in real estate, working with a local real estate investment company. And again, a few years later, I was tasked with setting up a department to do self-directed IRAs. I did that, and about a year later, I went out on my own, started Sense Financial, and about a year later, I did discover solo 401k. And when I did that, our business changed dramatically. Actually, right now we do about 90 to 95% of our business solo 401k, and about 5 to 10 IRAs, because solo 401k is so much better. So. That's kind of the background.
Got it. That's fascinating. Let's jump right in. What is the difference between a solo 401k and a self-directed IRA? Like, what are things that we can do differently in those two?
Well, Sam, good question. Number one, both vehicles can be self-directed, but an IRA, anybody can do an IRA. So anybody who has earned income or who has retirement account from the previous employer can roll over those and start a self-directed IRA. Solo 401k, on the other hand, is not for everyone. It's designed for those people who are self-employed or own a business. So you got to qualify for it. But if you do eligible, then it gives you some great benefits, great advantages. And I guess we can talk about that. But that's the main difference, eligibility requirements.
Gotcha. So you indicated that there are many more benefits to a solo 401k than there are to a self-directed IRA. Is that right?
Well, there are some significant benefits. Let me cover the main ones. Number one, solo 401k has significantly larger contribution limit. As you know, with an IRA, you can put in a year $6,000 per person. Okay, so fairly low limit. With the solo 401k, contribution limit is up to $58,000 per year. I mean, think about this. If you are in the business together with your spouse, you potentially can shelter over $100,000 of your income from taxes. And one thing that I talk with clients, on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis, it comes up, is the issue of taxation. The more money you make in your business, the more taxes you're going to pay.
Sure.
So this vehicle allows you to shelter a significant portion of your income from taxes. So, you actually benefit in, I guess, twice. You're benefiting today because you're able to lower your taxable income. And think about this. If you're able to reduce your taxable income by 100 grand or so in a single year, that's for sure going to drop you to a lower tax bracket. So you're going to be paying significantly less in a lower tax bracket. So, I mean, savings can be huge, $10,
Right.
$20, $30, $40,000, depending on the individual. So it's a great tax shelter. And then number two, you have the ability now to invest those funds in how you see fit. You're not locked to the conventional retirement accounts.
I got you.
Conventional retirement investment options. You can do alternative.
Sure. Okay, so you can reduce your taxable income. One of the things that we struggle with in self-directed IRAs is UBIT. Are you still subject to UBIT in a solo 401k?
Well, that's a good question, Sam. UBIT stands for Unrelated Business Income Tax. And when it comes to real estate investing, if you use an IRA to invest in leveraged real estate, meaning you invest in real estate that there is a loan against it, which you can do in an IRA, a portion of the income will be subject to this taxation. But solo 401k, that's, again, another benefit of the solo 401k that we discovered now is that it is exempt from UBIT tax on leveraged real estate. So you can buy real estate, you can use leverage, you can finance it, and not pay that taxes.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge because one of the benefits of real estate is leverage. And so how tough is it to find either low leverage, because obviously you're going to pay, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're going to pay a percentage on, like maybe you already said it, you're going to basically pay whatever percentage is leverage, you're going to pay that same percent in income. So, if it's a 70% levered property and you make $100,000 in that property, then 70% of your IRA that went into that deal would then be taxed. Is that right? Is it the basics of it? Or is it...
There's more to the calculation.
Sure.
You actually can deduct a portion of the expenses. So, it's not a simple number. You need a CPA to actually look at that. But
what in taxes is a simple number?
Yeah, the bottom line is that in an IRA, if you use leverage, there will be some taxes.
Right.
UBIT tax, and 401k is exempt from that.
Right.
Again, you've got to look at the particular, particular situation. And, even in an IRA, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be buying real estate with leverage. Paying taxes means you're making money, making profit, but it's certainly best not to pay the taxes versus paying the taxes.
Can you roll over an IRA into a solo 401k?
Solo 401k can accept rollovers from any retirement account with one exception, and that exception is a Roth IRA. So you can certainly roll over traditional IRA, a SEP IRA, simple IRA, previous 401k from the previous employer, or 457 plan, 403b, pension, and so on. Roth IRA is the only exception that cannot be rolled over.
Right. And the only drawback then to a solo 401k is that it goes in pre-tax income, which means that anytime you make a withdrawal, say in retirement, it's taxed on the way out. Is that right?
Well, that's how any retirement accounts work. So you actually, with the solo 401k, you can do both. You can make contributions pre-tax, and you can get the tax benefits now. So you get the tax deduction now, and then your investments can grow tax deferred, meaning you're not paying any taxes on the gains, on the income, on the profits. So you're able to grow it much faster. Take advantage of the the deferral.
Sure.
But also, and so when then you take a distribution from a solo 401k, just like you do from employer 401k or a traditional IRA, you'll pay the taxes at that time based on your tax bracket at that time, and based on the amount that you take out. So in other words, if you have $1 million in your 401k and you take out $50,000, you'll pay taxes on $50,000. The rest will continue to grow tax deferred. But a solo 401k has a Roth component. In other words, if you choose to make post-tax contributions into Roth, you can do so. And the limit on that contribution is $19,500 compared to $6,000 with an IRA. Okay. And also, there is a built-in rollover or conversion provisions allowing you to take the pre-tax dollars and convert them to Roth if you wish to do so. Obviously, Roth conversion is a taxable event, but if you decide to do that, bite the bullet and pay the taxes up front, you may do that. Your solo 401k rules in the plan allows you to do it. So basically, you will end up paying taxes on the seed, and the harvest is going to be tax-free.
Right. Understand. That's super cool. What are some things you see people doing that are red flags or mistakes as it pertains to solo 401ks?
Well, when it comes to self-directed investing, very important thing to understand is prohibited transactions. And prohibited transactions generally arise when there is a disqualified person involved. And the disqualified person is basically yourself, the account holder, and your immediate family members, which is your spouse, your parents, grandparents, your kids, grandkids, and their spouses. So basically, if you want to remember, the easy way to remember that is a vertical line. Okay. Mm-hmm. Horizontal is okay, like your siblings, your nephews, uncle, and so forth. But immediate family members are not okay. So, and one thing that I always try to illustrate my clients how to stay out of trouble is to remember that transaction involving your IRA or 401k must be arm's length, meaning that these persons that I described, they cannot be part of the transaction.
Right.
So if they're part of the transaction, most likely it's going to be prohibited transaction. If they're not part of the transaction, then you're good. You're typically good. Again, you want to make sure there is no conflict of interest.
Right. And I think the only exception to that might be is if we both decided, because I direct my parents' self-directed IRAs, like I help them place it and say, all right, guys, you're going to invest in this and this and this. But if we both self-directed our IRAs into a deal that was controlled entirely by someone else, I would imagine that we could do that.
Yeah, you can certainly do that because again, there is no, the other, your parents' IRA is not involved in your transaction.
Right.
It's
for sure.
Buying, you can buy stock of Amazon with your IRA, and your parents can buy stock of Amazon with their IRA.
Right.
So it's now when that will become a problem if you let's say a syndicator and or you control the deal and then you put in together a deal and regardless of what the percentage of your involvement in that. So having your IRA or 401k invest in that deal becomes problematic, and so is for any other disqualified person.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting. So are there any other red flags or things that come to mind that you see people, doing that maybe they shouldn't do or that could be done better?
Well, let me answer it this way. If the rules are pretty straightforward, maybe for somebody who's starting out and just learning the concept, it might be confusing. But once you understand the concept, the rules are pretty straightforward. Okay. And, I always tell my clients, if you're not sure about something, ask. Okay. But ask before doing that, not after the fact.
Right.
Well, believe me, I had that happen. I had clients come to me asking me about certain transaction after the fact, which, that ended up being a prohibited transaction, but that was too late to do anything.
Right.
So if you're, for the most part, once you understand the basics, you'll be able to identify the transaction yourself if it's prohibited. But if you have doubts, then don't do it. Ask. Make sure you certain it before moving forward.
Right. That seems like this is one of those cases where forgiveness is not easier than permission.
Yeah.
Which is usually the case, but not in this case. What would you say to someone who has a small value solo 401k? What are some ways they can invest that would make sense to you?
Well, I mean, small, that's, I guess, relative number. And a couple things I can say on this. When going back to my story and how I started first helping people with IRAs, typically I had clients who will come and they had some other accounts to roll over, like, existing IRA or maybe a 401k from the previous employer, typically 50,000, 100,000 or more. But when we rolled over a solo 401k, we started having a lot of clients starting from scratch without any rollover, starting from scratch, because again, with the solo 401k, you can start from scratch and you can put 50 or potentially 100 grand into 401k for both spouses in a single year. So that gives you a pretty good chunk of money to begin with. But if you don't have a lot of money, it all depends on what you want to invest in. I'm not an investment advisor. I do invest primarily I do private loans. So I'm a private lender, and I also invest in syndications. My past experience has been investing in single family homes. I don't do much of that now, but you do need X amount of dollars. You do need certain minimum to do those kind of things. I do remember one client, I think probably he did the smallest amount. I think he had maybe $3,000, and we did a checkbook IRA for his wife, but he had experience with tax liens. So he was able to deploy that small amount of $3,000 into tax lien, and he was generating pretty nice profits from that. That was his niche. For example, myself, I have no knowledge of tax liens. I don't really have desire to learn them. So it all depends on individual. It depends on their investment experience, depends on their goals, depends on their risk tolerance, and number of factors. And one thing that I can extend to your listeners is a complimentary consultation. I mean, you might be thinking about what it is that you might work for you. So it's always good to chat and kind of brainstorm. So I'll be happy to do that one-on-one with anybody to kind of maybe help discover certain things that might work for you, or maybe the opposite. Say, hey, there's been a number of times when I talk to somebody who does not have enough funds and they want to invest in rental property. That's all they want to do. Well, I say, listen, in this case, why don't you open an IRA at Vanguard, invest in a index mutual fund, contribute max for the next few years, grow that baby to certain amount when you actually can afford a certain investment that you're interested in, and then move to a self-directed retirement account. Right.
This is great. Dmitry, we need to jump into the final four. So I don't know. Let's do that. We're going to edit that out. Sorry, I'm sitting here thinking it. Let's jump into the final four here, Dmitry. What is one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring investor?
Well, don't rush into things. Start learning, okay? And try to find a mentor, okay? I remember when I started, I didn't really have a mentor, and I made a number of mistakes, which again, having said that, it doesn't mean that you need to sit on the sidelines forever. You got to start somewhere, but try to find somebody who can kind of take you under their wing and help you learn.
Mm-hmm. What is one thing you are currently doing to stay on top of your game?
One of the things that I'm doing is actually networking, being connected to people, and just drawing into others people's knowledge. I can't know everything. I don't pretend to, and there is so much you can draw from other people.
Right. No, that's great. When it comes to giving back, what's one way you're making the world a better place?
Well, there's a number of ways that I give back, and a couple of things that I can mention is I work with an organization called Compassion International, and we support children in third world countries, helping them get the education and just the basics. We are so blessed in this country. I came, like I said, from Russia, and I'm one of 9 boys. So we grew up in a large family, and we just had the basics. We were blessed. We never went hungry, but we didn't experience a prosperity that we do experience in this country. So I can appreciate the blessings that we have, and also there is a orphanage in Ukraine that we like to support.
No, that's really great. That's really great. Dmitry, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, you can find me on social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Bigger Pockets, or you can simply go to our website, which is sensefinancial.com, and sense is like common sense, SENSE, sensefinancial.com, and you can find links to our social profiles there, or you can reach out to us directly.
Awesome. Dmitry, thank you so much for your time today. Certainly appreciate it.
Oh, Sam, it's been a pleasure. Thanks. Good questions.